Just before we get started, David, do you want to...
If you want to speak, stand up so we can get you on the video, and please wait for the microphone as there are people online who want to be able to follow us there. So basically, if you stand up, wave if you want to make a comment, microphone will come your way. If you're tweeting, the hashtag is Govt20Hui, etc. We tried to do Gov 2.0, but we think dots and hashtags don't tend to go too well together. And also there is, as with all sessions, a collaborative document, so you can go in and start making your own notes as you go through.
Yeah, and here it is here. Here it is here, and I've chucked a couple of links in there that already, oh, more than a couple actually. But yeah, so the plan for the session is I work with the Result 10 and RealMe teams as part of digital transformation. Sorry, I'm not Richard Foy, so I won't be giving the all singing, all dancing fancy PowerPoint, but I will show you a couple of short videos just to give a picture of where we're up to with Result 10. And then we're going to, Nick's got some examples from planning, and then we're going to go into discussion around different topics. I've also got colleagues who can't be here who've told me to ask some questions. I've chucked those on index cards up the back, so if you can help by chucking up some post-it notes and answers, then my colleagues back in Wellington who couldn't make it will be very happy that I can get some feedback back to them. So I thought we'd start by just checking where, you want to ask that bit, David? Where everyone's from, what's your background? Do you work in government, with government, or what's the other one?
We thought, like, just wave your hand. Or do you actually work in government, either central or local? Wow, good turnout, good to see so many here. Now stick your hand up if you broadly work with government, so private sector but work with government. Wow, another great turnout. And lastly, if like myself, you're a user of government services. Yeah, should be. Most of us in the room, etc. There's really good diversity there, actually. It's almost sort of a third between consumers, providers, and the actual agencies themselves. Yeah,
and thanks. We've got James as also our kaupapa person in his orange vest, and he's also taking the notes. So thanks very much, James. Okay, ready to go? Yeah, interesting. David mentions diversity because Internal Affairs is a really diverse organisation. We've got, well, it's very variable. We've got 2,000 staff, and you go away to conferences to meet some of them. And so one of my colleagues from our technical branch, TSS, Technology Service and Solutions, I think it's called, is here. And hello, Richard. Is it Richard? Robert. We cover quite a lot. The sponsor of this conference event is the anti-spam team, but we also have the Government Chief Information Officer, who is our Chief Executive, Colin McDonald, who has the ICT functional leadership. You'll probably know, some of you who remember the 80s, that back then the whole way the public sector changed. We went to a more corporate kind of model with chief executives having key performance outcomes and things, and departments became separate entities that went off and did their own thing in a tight and efficient way was the plan. And now we're finding that we need to come back and have some functional leadership around things like property and also ICT, because to avoid duplication of investment. So it swings and roundabouts there. So our GCIO role is to help, I hate to use the word leverage, it gets overused a lot, but help government be more consistent and more effective in using its purchasing power and developing common capabilities and tools that can be used across the sector. We also have the Government Information Service, who run the govt.nz website. Has anyone been on that, used it? Anyone read their blogs on the web toolkit? They're a real proponent of what I like to call working out loud, where they talk about what they're doing and the struggles they're having and the things that they're trying. They work in an agile way, and they're gradually trying to improve the information available on govt.nz. There are some questions from colleagues I have that I'll ask you later. If you can give me stuff to take back to them, that would be great. They also have data.gov.nz, which is making available big government data sets so that they can be repurposed and used to create value. Similarly, we have the National Library, which has Digital NZ, which tries to link up sets of information in the cultural sector, and the National Digital Heritage Archive, and also Government GIS has the Common Web Platform and provides guidance on accessibility. And if you haven't seen, there's the GCO site, the links in the document, and then the Government Web Toolkit's got a heap of information about what it's guidance basically for government agencies, but it's actually quite good for anyone around things like accessibility. So if you're working on web services in government, I encourage you to have a look at it. And then coming back to actual service delivery, we also deliver services as well as doing stuff across government. We try and get your passport to you in a fast and efficient and secure way. And has anyone renewed their passport in the last year or two? Yeah. Was it fast or slow? Fast. Yes, we're quite proud of it. Yeah, so we actually deliver that and things like birth registrations, which also went online a couple of months ago. So if you have a baby now, you can have the baby in your arms, sit in the armchair at home, and on your iPhone register the baby's birth. So things like that. No, but we do. People can send photos if they want us to know. We do get photos from people who are happy that usually that they're in Australia. Their child has got citizenship quickly enough for them to get a passport quickly enough that they can come home for grandma. So, yeah. Okay, just coming back to Result 10, has anyone been involved with Result 10 before now or heard a presentation? Yeah, Richard Foy has been here the last 2 years. The government set, about 3 years ago maybe, 10 key result areas for government. Result 10 is to make it easy for New Zealanders to transact with the government online, and Result 9 has the same for business. We developed a Result 10 blueprint, which sort of set out some actions that we would take, and we're currently in the process of refreshing that. But one of the things we did was carry out customer research. And I'm going to, rather than me talking, I'm going to show you a little video.
To understand customer experiences with government, the Result 10 team spoke with people who were going through one of 4 life events: beginning study, immigrating to New Zealand, retiring, or becoming a parent. We spoke with New Zealanders who created maps for us, explaining in their own words their experience of using government services. We measured 12 pain points, moments when customers have difficulty using these services. By interviewing 1,500 New Zealanders, we were able to measure how many people experienced them and how much they mattered. We found that 51% of customers had experienced one or more of these pain points. We also found that when navigating a change in circumstances, they often felt that it was up to them to join the dots between agencies, and that they used multiple channels to complete their transactions. They were generally happy for their information to be shared if it led to better services, but wanted clarity about what services were available and what they were eligible for. They wanted reassurance that they were doing the right thing, and acknowledgement that their application had been received and was being processed. People also told us that online transactions are complicated, so it's easier to call or see someone in person. Lastly, we created customer segments based on the number of transactions and pain points people had experienced, and how they felt when accessing government services. This research will help us design better digital services, and it's for anyone interested in better customer experiences. To find out more, email result10@dia.govt.nz.
So, one of the things that we were doing while this research was going on was looking at developing integrated digital services. And I'll make the distinction between integration from the customer's point of view, where everything is seamless, so they look to government and they don't have to go from department to department to department. And at the back end, you have federations of government agencies, so it's federated so the agencies stay separate. They don't all just come into one mega super morph of an agency. But so it's federated at the back and integrated from a customer point of view. I'm sorry. I'm going to sneeze. Anyway. RMA consent. Yeah, true. Yeah. So, did anyone go to the Identity conference? I know a few. Yeah, Minister Dunn and Minister English both spoke there, and they talked about the shift that we have. We don't want New Zealanders to have to be expert in how government works, because really, does it really matter if you need to know that, well, Internal Affairs does this, and IRD does this, and MSD does that, and MB does this, and is it MB or MOBI anyway? So the public, they don't need to be experts in government, they shouldn't need to be, or we shouldn't need to be. We should be able to access services that are designed to meet our needs. And how I like to look at it is that if I'm a parent or someone self-employed who's a plumber, then I'm better to be spending my time reading stories to my kids or going out and fixing pipes than I am to be spending time working out how I should deal with government and you know, filling in forms or getting frustrated and anxious about whether I'm doing the right thing. So Minister English said the shift in public services to organisation around the customer rather than around government department will last for our professional lifetime, he thinks. Publics expect that we have the ability to meet the unique requirements of individual New Zealanders who need services, and the shift, putting the customer at the centre of decision making, is inevitable, and the only choice is how quickly we get there. So we're trying. It's not always easy. It's actually, I don't know, is it ever easy to do that? But we have some tools that we've developed as part of Result 10. I'll just, where are we in the, excuse me. So, sorry, it might be I'm using Kevin's laptop, so I'll just try and actually find a way of opening on the Mac that I'm not going to do. No. Yes. Yeah. So this is other work that we've done at Result 10, is not me personally, but my colleagues have produced service design guidelines that anyone can use to help them design customer-centric services. And the first life event, mentioned earlier, having a baby, retiring and things like that. The first life event that we've got off the board is baby, and I'll just show you the baby video. So it's quite sweet.
Emily's having a baby soon. It's exciting, but there's lots of work to do. She needs to organise a midwife, join an antenatal class, find a car seat, and more. But what if there was a way for Emily to know exactly what to do? How to find a midwife and get important pregnancy advice. Something that would recognise when Emily's circumstances change and help her through the process, making interacting with government simple and accessing services easy. Instead of providing the same information to each agency, Emily enters her information once and gives permission when she wants it shared. Keeping her information secure and Emily in control. For agencies, this means data comes directly from a trusted source, reducing risk, administration and compliance costs, leaving more time for the things that matter most.
I said it was quite sweet, the music. You'll have seen there that, I'll just get back to the notes. You'll have seen there that RealMe was the tool that was used to share that information. RealMe is most of what my day job is as a senior advisor in the digital transformation team, and what I'm mostly working on is we're trying to improve, to respond to the customer experience, improve the customer experience and the usability of RealMe. When it's been set up, it's robust, it's reliable, it's privacy by design. Joy was mentioning something about that last night. Thanks for the shout out at the Magna Carta lecture. So it's very private. It's designed to put people in control, but we know that we want to improve the usability of it. So a personal request, if you've got thoughts on how RealMe is working, or suggestions or ideas or feedback, please come and tell me, because I'm trying to gather that. And also if you've had any experience at putting in voice of the customer tools for anything like RealMe or any services, I'm looking for examples of how that's been done elsewhere, so please come and see me about that as well. I think probably just a quick check, who's got, how many people had one of the old iGovt logins? Anyone? Yeah? And so you've got the new RealMe login automatically. How many have got a verified identity? The online electronic identity credential? A few. Yeah, we've just hit 50,000. It's been a long, hard road. It's 2 years since we started, but about a month ago we got a passports co-apply process in, and we put a lot of thought into how we put that in, and that means that now you can, as part of your renewing your passport, you can tick a box and choose to get a RealMe verified identity automatically, rather than having to do the 2 steps where you go and get your photo taken at New Zealand Post. So any feedback about that process too, please come and see me. We're really interested in how people are finding that, but we're finding that it's rapidly the numbers. Bobs now, and then we'll go into discussion, unless there's any questions in the room at the moment. Ooh. I'm going to hand someone duck in and out.
No, I just going to wave just now.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Cool, you're going to do that.
Yeah, yes. So, for those who don't know me, my name's Nick Williamson. I've been working in and around local government for about, or a better part of 20 years. And my interest in this area comes from, ultimately derives from my job as being a policy writer, local government planning, urban design sort of background. And to be able to make good policy at local government community level, you actually need people to tell you what the issues are that they want you to deal with. Most people don't like having anything to do with their local government, and the less they have the better, so it's an exceptionally difficult process. So I soon realised that local government in its current form is broken, and simply it's just not working. So what I've been interested in specifically is how some of the Result 10 initiatives from the DIA translate into local and community level of government. Now, formally, it doesn't necessarily deal with that. The DIAs aren't necessarily mandating it, but Local Government New Zealand are picking up the Result 10 and then trying to press that onto councils and saying, well, you need to be doing the same thing. Because, of course, all of these life events that you've seen, the 4 of them, usually happen once in your life. That's why they're a life event. Whereas a lot of the transactions that you have on a day-to-day basis at a local government level are at least annually or more. And so for me, there's been a massive gap in what's happening, in all the initiatives happening at a national level and what's been trying to happen, and then what's happening at a local level, which is almost sort of fundamentally the opposite. Now, one of the reasons is that there's 78 local authorities in New Zealand, district councils, and so there's been a lot of work and initiatives saying, well, we need to be getting some more efficiency, and can we not be cooperating and working together? So what's happening on the one hand is we're having these discussions and having the super cities formed. Auckland Council was the first one. Wellington they've decided not to do. Northern they've decided not to do. Hawke's Bay they are going to do. And there's a whole lot of other initiatives trying to say, okay, councils aren't really being fiscally responsible. We want to change and amalgamate them and centralise some of the functions, building consenting functions, and doing that online, taking them away from district councils. And one of the areas that I've been personally involved in quite directly is the centralisation of resource management functions. And for those of you who don't know, the current initiative is to actually have a nationwide town planning document that's run in a central database effectively that can just be tweaked and customised district by district. So they're looking at templating resource management. So there's been a lot of discussion at I guess district council manager sort of level, which was where I've been operating at least in the last couple of years, saying, is that actually going to work? Because the issues facing Auckland in terms of growth and population are the opposite of what's happening in Dunedin, for example, which has got negative growth. And is it correct to have one set of zone rules that apply to the whole country in all of our towns and all of our districts? There's been examples of where things have gone particularly pear-shaped when urban metropolitan issues are tried to be applied to districts and provinces. Kapiti Coast, for example, tried to impose some urban design guidelines and got a complete slamming with their district plan change. So there's a lot of tension going on, and there's a lot of scrambling about what to do next. We don't really know. So my particular interest in this has been experimenting and looking at local government as a type of sort of urban refinery where we can use some more agile and prototyping ways of doing things. So for myself, I have been involved with looking at ways in which we can adapt, the startup type approach of business to rulemaking and policy making. So one of the discussions I've had with the Ministry for the Environment about their district plan template is saying, well, okay, there's some merit in having synergies between councils and sharing of knowledge, and if a rule works in one town, there's no reason, don't need to reinvent how you measure noise in every district in the country. So one of the things that I've certainly been pushing for is saying, well, why don't we actually use rulemaking like a GitHub process? I mean, they do it in Germany, and can we be creating statutes and creating laws online and using more participatory processes? So that's sort of where I've sort of been focusing my attention and effort, trying to actually bridge that gap between communities and central government via the sort of the local government stuff. But there's a number of ways in which people obviously deal with local government as well. And when you look at the level of participation in processes like annual plans, how many people here have actually put a submission into a long-term plan which says where their rates go? Yeah, stuff all. That's about right. That was
quite good, actually.
Yeah, that was right. So, I mean, I know for the Whangarei district, for example, I think the annual plan, which is where the council spends its money for the next sort of 10 years, there was maybe, I don't know, 100 people made a submission or something quite ridiculous. Which, for me, is I'm saying, well, this is why everyone is not happy with what the council's doing. They'll become disengaged. I know from my experience in looking in local government that many people in the senior hierarchies of local government are of the view that no response means everybody is happy with things, right? And so that's generally the default. Nobody says it must be fine, we must be doing things great, everyone's happy, they've all gone quiet. And often there will be KPIs and performance indicators measuring on the least number of submissions you get to a document. So lots of submissions mean, man, it's a really controversial, you must have got it wrong, versus, oh no, nobody made a submission, perfect, tick that box. So you can see what those do in terms of the incentivisation of process and getting people to participate, and hence why my sort of assertion that it's fundamentally broken. So we're needing to look at different ways of doing things, and I guess this is what we're sort of looking at doing for this room, and saying, well, thinking about the ways in which you participate and engage with central government and local government, there's a number of different ways you do it. There's the service and information service, customer service sort of front end. You need information from the council or know how to do things. There's a process where you engage with those. There will be levels where you need a resource consent or a building consent to do something, and so you're a customer in terms of a regulatory process. And then there's some more sort of democratic sort of rule-making, policy-making. How do you get involved in shaping and defining policy through the statutory processes and stuff? So interesting. So what we're wanting to do, I think, is have a sort of break into a sort of workshop style, and Rachel will probably lead us through this. But
yeah, just a quick. Probably it would be good to have just a few shout-outs as to what people would most like to do. So if you're who's interested in service delivery, service design of actual government stuff, how we design services, a few. What about contributing to policy and the principles at that level? A few. And then the participation in things like regulatory, where I want something, my neighbour might have something different, or I might be in a judicial process where there's a dispute to be resolved, and we're applying the principles, we're applying the rules and having people submit and say what their opinion is. That one? Not so much that one. Oh, and a lot of you didn't stick your hand up. So how many are you just kind of happy to go along with what everyone else is doing? But by next measure, by next KPIs for, I don't know if it's Whangarei District Council, that's a resounding success, yeah. I think. Yeah.
Everyone's happy.
Okay. Right, well, I've got some questions up the back that I might just chuck to the room, and then if people want to throw up other questions, we'll look at moving into maybe 3 discussion groups or 4 or whatever seems most natural, and go from there. So I'm just going to, sorry, what's this way? Get around the back. Okay. So these are the questions that actually came from Wellington. There are some people watching on the live stream, I think. What do you think about government service delivery now? So we'll chuck out some, we might go and get some more post-its because the rooms, we've been given fewer than this room's capacity looks like it needs. What are your ideas for improving government service delivery? So I imagine plenty of people have got plenty of ideas. Are there better ways to include New Zealanders in government service delivery? So that's in the planning and in the delivery of services. How do we smooth the path for people using government information? There are, hands up those who've heard of an API. Keep your hand up if you actually know what they are. This is more people know what they are than have heard of them. This is a smart room. Application Programming Interface. Nods, good, yep. Yes, so for those of you who don't know, the ways that you can get your database to talk to other people's databases and suck information in. Is that a fair description? No, oh well. So ask one of the people to put their hands up and they'll give you a better description. But I know government, New Zealand is using them. It might be for something like, I don't think it's there yet, but when the school holidays are, when the GST return dates are, so a little bit of information that you can suck into your system and be reliable and useful. My personal one, what do you think about RealMe now? Please stick up some post-its, come and see me. And what would you like to see RealMe do in the future? Or how would you like to see it change? So yeah, I'll open that intrepidation and see what comes back, but yeah, please do share. So are there any other questions that people have that they would like to get the wisdom of the group or the ideas of the group on? Right, this is a zigzag.
I would like to try and focus attention on where we should be in 10 years. A lot of this work is just improving the existing systems, but we need to think radically about major change. So maybe the IRD is doing it, but why do you need to do a GST return if all your banking is done through the banking system? This discussion about the your bank account number being universally available was conducted in 1976 when Wanganui Computer was first put in, right? We need to move on and have much bigger ideas. There's a recent book being published, it's called Online Gravity, and it's talking about gravity as in how the stars are brought together. But what we're really saying is that one of the effects of the internet is bringing everything together and having having huge changes like, will there ever be another Google? And the answer is no. How could you compete with Google doing what Google does? They're already occupying the space and there's no room for anyone else. So we need to talk about radical things. The Auckland transportation problem is horrendous, but nobody's thinking about the fact that there are now less cars per head of population in some advanced countries. So why are we trying to solve the problem by having more roads? Maybe we need to look at the future and say, well, maybe we need less cars, right? One of the horrendous things is we've let railways degenerate, but railways in most of the world are the way you go to work. Okay? We've got the internet connect.
So I think that's plenty as a prompt for questions.
Just a quick response to that, Ian, your example of why can't your GST returns come directly from the bank? For those who aren't on Xero, Xero now has the ability that you can, rather have to file out all the surveys from Stats New Zealand, you just sign up and Xero will share the data directly with Stats New Zealand, and that's great, more accurate info for stats, and it means I no longer have to spend a few hours going through the forms. So some stuff is a bit harder, but it's great to see private sector government agencies are already working on that.
Also, I'll just do a plug for my session this afternoon, which is on Government 3.0, which is, how do we ramp it up and from digital by default to let's reimagine local government based around the internet. So come along with that one. We'll deal with those issues.
I've just written that question up.
Cool.
I'm Munir from Christchurch. My question is, there are great initiatives like customer center service design and those other initiatives. How do you guys measure the success? And what are the major challenges for you guys at the moment?
In relation to DIA stuff or just generally?
Service design. Because I was reading some Research New Zealand article, so which shows that relatively public is not that much engaged with government agencies relatively through, like, for example, smart devices or laptops or some other thing. So I'm presuming that there is a little bit of lacking in service design for mobile devices, probably.
There's I was just thinking that the example, so the project I was involved in, which was centred around service design and in a regulatory plan making process. So a project that I did in the Whangarei district, Kamo, the town of Kamo, we said, well, let's try and develop a town plan in 5 days. So what I fundamentally did with the process was changed it from a statutory process to a live event. So I basically took the reality TV model of, you know, changing rooms and those DIY, you know, terrible programs. But what they are is a really consumable version of watching somebody renovate their house. Because if you live stream somebody renovating their house over 6 months, that would be tedious, as local government processes generally are. So it's about reframing the processes around service design. What I did in that case was saying, okay, it's about short, sharp engagement, making interesting and getting sort of buy-in. And so the process that I did, and I can share the metrics from that particular one, just a bit of a comparison, and I did a prezi on it for, I think it's being reported into the Open Government Partnership as a case study, the one that I did, but we had some metrics around it. Compared to the default process of council, the council process I was involved in, we were negotiating or consulting with the community on a rural policy and used best practice, and the level of engagement was so low that when you factored in man hours, it was $20,000 of time spent per written submission received. So you could like quantify it, right? So horrendously inefficient. Using the process with social media, and we had a way more engaging process by sort of community immersion and stuff. We dropped that to $117 per written comment. So massive, massive savings, yeah. But they're right.
I'll pick up a little bit that too. Our target in Result 10, each of the result areas had targets. Ours was to get 70% of a basket of 8 services on available digitally, or not only available but actually used by 70% for 70% of transactions conducted digitally by 2017, and our measure has been changed. Cabinet changed it last year because we recognised with the research that people, it's not good enough that you can go and do this here and this here. It's the same online as in person. You don't want to go from site to site. People want it to be easy overall. So it's not just good enough that you do it. You want to be easy. So we've been doing work, my colleagues have been doing work, how do you measure easy? And so there has been some work done, and I can put you in touch with some of that thinking if you like. Yeah. Another question, so I've got one here and there, 2, 3, and then we might just very quick if you can, and we'll go to discussion.
I did like the model where there was proposed the integration of information between different services and structures. However, that's sort of on a higher level of these as interaction across the main government services in New Zealand, and maybe perhaps doesn't show the connection to the local body thing. So for instance, if it's medical data being forwarded, or just information about a person's condition, that being forwarded from, say, the Ministry of Health to the relevant social services, because you'll have multiple third-party providers depending on what area and region, and then you'll have to go through about 3 or 4 different levels of assessment, which then have to be duplicated for each request. So sometimes I'm wondering if there's sort of a guideline on what information does get transferred to different services, or if there's going to be perhaps any sort of web service integration design proposed for that integration there, so that if you're, say, the local care provider for the Auckland or the Wellington region, you can then make that request to get access to the Ministry of Health information, and you'll be able to get access to view these parameters or anything like that. And so that would probably be easier for each local care provider.
Yeah, I'm not sure about what, there's data sharing. Just to make it clear with Baby, we're not sharing information and records. The plan isn't to link a person's health record, all of that. with Baby through RealMe, the person will say, do you want to share your address? Tick yes I do, send, kind of thing. They'll go and say, please share this information, and it's anticipated it will be specific information at this stage that I have control, and I can go to my RealMe account and see what was shared when. So that's a bit different, but I think there is work. Does anyone know about what's happening in the health field? We maybe can talk to that in discussion. Who was over here who had a... Oh, that was one behind you first, I think.
Thanks. I guess this just relates to the previous question, but I'd like to be part of some discussion around how we can integrate informed consent in terms of data sharing and privacy into government services.
And I was interested in why it seems to be so much easier for private to do things than public. You know, why can I live chat with 3 different banks and 4 different telecommunications companies? Why do I have an app for every private company that I deal with on my phone, but don't have one for any of the government facilities? Is it just funding? Is it risk averse? Why does it take so much longer for public to do it than private?
Thank you, Dan. And the lady down there has been waiting for a while.
Oh, sorry. Hi, I'm Narelle. My is a bit about what you were talking, and it's about maybe we could discuss the issues that are actually holding us back from delivering better, more inclusive digital services, and ideas about how they can be overcome.
Nice and succinct too. So, lady over here, sorry. Suzette, isn't it? We kind of want to get to discuss those. So just
I liked what you said, Rachel, about ease, but I think the other real issue is what you've just alluded to, which is speed. Those of us in the private sector know we can do things real quick. I've just been at Govt, stuff was done in 2 days. Things can be done so much quicker. So I want to talk about what business can bring to the government to give speed to all of these initiatives, which are great, but the slow but glacial speed of government means 2-3 years. I mean, I'm sorry, but it's just not working.
I've got one question for the audience which can lead into the discussion. I was going to actually pose it as, what other services beyond the 70% we've heard about do you want to be able to transact online? But I then thought, actually, should it be opt-in or should it be opt-out? Should we actually say we want absolutely everything to be available online except 1 or 2 areas? And I'd be interested to hear from people, you know, what are the 1 or 2 areas that shouldn't be online? Should we be able to report crime online? Burglaries, that would seem quite sensible. I then was thinking sexual assault. That's, you know, a bit more difficult, but actually some people may find it easier to do the initial report with not having to go down to a police station, etc. And in fact, when you consider how much it's underreported, if people actually had the ability to report it, even if they didn't want investigated for criminal, that might get it there. So I'd be very interested just to hear from people, are there any areas that we shouldn't aspire to be online? Some people don't like online voting. What are the other areas where you actually don't want it online? Otherwise, you know, should we aim for everything?
Hi, I'm Ruth. I'd like to, given there's so many government people in the room here, hear about success stories, because I'm from Australia and I've worked extensively with government at all levels there, and I think too often we don't celebrate success. Government is a difficult ecosystem which works with complex issues that the private sector don't handle, and I'd love to hear from people about what's gone really well instead of just focusing on what went badly.
Just real quickly, I'm Tam Shepherd. I run MyGov in Australia. We had a Gov 1.0 issue, and I sense you have it here, and it was, we had a identity crisis. We saw ourselves as agencies and levels of government, and then when we went to MyGov, we realised actually consumers don't give a shit. Yeah. They want to do their work with government, they don't care what level you're from. Yeah. And so I wonder, as I went around Wellington on Monday and Tuesday, whether or not the first thing you've got to do is realise you are all government. That's right. And it doesn't actually matter to the consumer who you work for. And if you start with that identity, it does make it a bit easier. It took us 4 years, but it doesn't to even get the, you understand this of real me, but it helps. It helps. Yeah. I think before you jump to 2 and 3, work out your Gov 1.0 issue. Yep.
Yeah. Thanks, Tama. I'm going to do one more thing and then we're going to split into groups. So you're the lucky last. Apologies to anyone else, and come back to Gov 3.0 if you haven't got it.
I guess I just wanted to raise an issue which I guess on the face of it is largely semantic, but in all this integration, it seems that we're talking about customers rather than, I guess, citizens, or as you put it, consumers. And it may just be a semantic argument, but I think it changes the way people see how they use the services. There's no competition for a lot of these services. They can't go to another provider, and so they need to be able to see that they can actually influence and change how these services are provided and be kind of more involved in their design.
Thanks, Hayden. That reminds me of a tweet from the Identity Conference. If you just change customers and put the word people. Okay, so what I've got, I've just been writing up note cards. It sounds like we've got an area around barriers to talk about. The barriers, why can't government be faster? Why is it taking so long? What's holding us back? There's a discussion around informed consent for sharing information. It's another one that came up a couple of times. There's the how do you measure success? I think that's possibly could link in with the barriers. What do you think? Anyone? Different one. I think the informed consent's guidelines about what information's transferred, that comes under that. And success stories, and then the just what do you think about government now? How do you think it should change? So what I'll do, does this sound like it's a way of working? If I stick these to the walls or on these tables with blue tack, do you want to just come and write what you think on post-its and talk to the people you find there, and then we'll whip around group by group to get feedback with about 15-10 minutes to go? Is that okay, or better ideas? Okay, hands up if okay. Yep, done. Okay, cool. I'll find the blue tack. Away we go.
This is the point where we need a nice musical interlude or something. Yeah. I don't. Are you on Twitter or anything? Okay, you find me that way. Yeah. Otherwise, follow me on Twitter. My Twitter profile's got a link to my other details, so you can track me down on that way, LinkedIn or something. No worries. And, so I'll ping you as well. So hang on. So you, and then I can find it.
G'day, how are you? I'm someone who's occasionally sent an email off to members of Parliament, etc.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes very difficult to tell whether...
A little bit difficult to capture the section.
Never totally automated, but they have templates.
Do you?
Yeah.
Yes.
It depends probably how specific the question is. Usually if it's your local MP, you're much more likely to get a personal one.
Yeah, well, our local MP, Simon Connor. So the question is how to get serious discussion on longer term issues.
Well, with your local MP, actually make an appointment. I actually go into their office, I want to have a chat about this. That's actually probably the most effective way. It's funny as we've just talked about doing it online, but there's some...
I mentioned, for example...
Go, Martin.
Hi,
how are you? Good.
Good. Are you on Twitter?
I am on Twitter. That's just turned over. DBF.
Can I just take a quick picture of that?
Of course.
I'd love to stay in touch with you guys. Perfect, thanks.
Yeah. So I mentioned, for example, a railway solution to distribute Auckland's population. In most of the world, in the US, it's 45 minutes. Commuting time is acceptable.
Yes. Move away from the mic.
Yeah, we were at that so I was already thinking actually did a presentation and that we they got specifically parts of that. And so we do through that, and it's better breaking down and of course go on percentages like that regional
Okay, if you want to, I've forgotten your name, lady in the mustard blazer. Yes, has got about guidelines. So if you want to go and talk about, is that the right one? About principles for sharing information and informed consent. Yeah. So that's the privacy informed consent. Over on the wall here, why is it so hard? What can business bring? Government 1.0, we need to have an identity. They all seem to be related. And success story. Oh, David's got the what shouldn't be online. Wave your hand, David. And our Australian friends down the back have got success stories. So please share that success. Anyone watching online, please tweet in questions, or you can direct message or email me. I think Rachel@prosser.co.nz is coming in, if that's helpful. rachel@prosser.co.nz is on this phone.
One of the well-known government failures is
sensory loss, which you can't reduce by the use of hearing glasses. There's a lot with the impact of easily get marginalised so Pence's going back on the scale, that's a lot of
it's amazing when I this is new. Where you are my so the project that I was involved in, rather than seeing all
I don't know.
Just this one. Okay, so can everyone start moving back to wrapping up? So you've got 60 seconds to wrap up and get ready for us to report back. Always good. Works with 2-year-olds as well. Never give them no warning. They don't like it.
This one.
Oh. I should get a photo because my colleague.
Guns going. Right. Right.
I think so.
Righto. Keep it moving around, and from that.
Moving on, back to the seat. I won't make the tui noise because that would be evil. But tweet, tweet.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Cool. Cool. Hey, thank you everyone. Some people have made a run for lunch, which is actually out there, so we won't keep you too long. Could people stick a hand up if they've got a succinct 1-line or a 1.5-liner report back they want to share? So hands up who has got something they want to feedback. We'll maybe try them for 5 people or so.
I can do very
One
quick.
for David, yep.
Just the key outtake from our quick discussion is authentication is going to be the key. People being able to verify who they are, and that deals with also concerns, the crime example I gave of people doing false reports. So authentication really has to sit at the heart of increased uptake.
Cool, nice and succinct, Dave, thank you. For the sharing information guidelines, was that a different group? Success stories?
So thank you to everyone. We had about 10 people by the end at Success Stories, which in any government forum is amazing that so many people are willing to own their work. I think the key thing was around open data. So open data is a big success in New Zealand at the moment, and it was interesting some of the experiences we've had in Australia across governments and contrasting that. Also, we're celebrating the 10th anniversary of, there's Rob, Ask Librarian. Sorry, any questions run by librarians. I get excited by librarians, they're very cool people. Which is celebrating its 10th anniversary and runs on the smell of an oily rag and is helping children understand the world they live in. So celebrating 10 years is a really big success, so props to you guys.
Yay for National Library. I used to work there. Big fan of any questions. Oh, yay. Okay, there were a group of... Who wants to talk about the why is it so hard, what are the barriers?
One thing that really came up was the fact that barriers aren't necessarily a technological thing. A lot of it's to do with culture, and to make things faster we need to change the culture that we work in. We don't want people scared of their jobs just because we're improving government. basically, and also working with very old legacy systems.
Yes, old legacy systems. Now, we had one on sharing personal information. Does anyone want to... Yep, here we go.
So we just sort of talked about how it's not a choice if you say no to your data being shared but then can't access the service, and how it's a spectrum of people being really keen for all their data to be shared to improve the services to them, and some people not being keen to have their data shared but still needing to access the service. So how can you cater to that spectrum of people? And we also talked a wee bit about the need to retroactively build in some sort of informed consent processes around existing data sharing and data collection services.
Thanks, Zoe. Did anyone else want to add a comment or question? We might wrap up bang on time before the TUI screeches. No, nothing. Anyone? No. Thank you very much. And as I said, please come and see me if you've got any answers to any of those questions. My colleagues wanted to be here and couldn't be. So. Yeah.